Today's youth need teachers, volunteers, and most of all, well, they need you. I'm Doug Edwards, and I'm going to be talking with real youth mentors and students to give you the knowledge you need to be the best youth worker possible. This is Youth Worker on Fire. Hi, Youth Worker Nation. This is Doug Edwards with Youth Worker on Fire. And I am very pleased to have today Serena Parkinson Burrows. And I've known Serena for quite a while. Knew her in high school when she was part of our club. And also, she started volunteering for us for a while. And she comes from education family. Her mom is a teacher. Your dad does building, right? Is that what he does? He's a builder. But most of all, this is the part I like most, is that they're surfers. And so well, we got to get at least one surf story today. But she is a great volunteer. She started volunteering her freshman year in college. I think kept on for probably 10 years, at least. 10 years, and felt like 100 for her. But for me, it felt like just a day, you know. So that's how good Serena is. And everyone would like to, all the girls that she staffed wanted to be with her all the time. Sometimes couldn't let them know where you were, could you? And the staffers too, because she's just that personality and that sweet of a person. So Serena, it's good to have you here today.
Thank you. It's very nice to be here.
Tell me this, catch us up.
Well, I graduated from Eustis High School, and I went to UCF, and I also did Lake Sumter, and I worked with youth. My day job was at an architect company, and I did drafting and design. And then I retired from that and started working at a law office, and I did some legal assisting, and then I retired from that. In the meantime, I also got married and had 2 kids.
Tell us about your husband and about your kids.
My husband, we actually both went to middle school and high school together, but we weren't exactly friends. He was pretty cool, and I was not as cool. And then we met.
If we took a vote of your friends, we might find that, to be the opposite. I don't know.
But we ended up, it's kind of funny, I saw him at UCF once, and I passed him, and I was like, "Oh, hey, do you go here?" And he looked at me, and he goes, "No." And he kept on walking by. And I was so embarrassed, and my friend next to me was like, "Do you know that guy?" And I was like, "Oh, yeah. We went to middle school and high school together." And, I thought he knew me. And apparently, Jason said to his friend kind of called him out on being rude. And it's like, did you know her? And he was like, yeah, but, I'll never see her again. So, always be nice to people.
Exactly.
And then I guess about 2 years later, we actually met up again because this youth pastor at this church that we went to made us go to lunch together.
What?
Yes. Yeah.
I don't know why that.
Doug Edwards.
Who is that guy?
Yes, you had all of the college people that were living in town come and have lunch together every Monday, I think it was. And but hey, he would only pay for drinks. Like, you would only pay for drinks. It wasn't like you were buying our entire meal.
Right.
I just don't want anyone to get jealous thinking that you did that. So anyway, Jason and I just hung out more and more, and 4 years later, got married, and we've been married it'll be 13 years in October.
That's crazy. Those are crazy numbers. I can't believe it.
Yes. So he's a musician. He's always been a musician since we started dating. I think he started playing drums when he was 12. And so even when we started dating, I came home like, "Mom, Dad, I met this guy. He's in a band." And
immediately, no. Right.
He's going on tour. And but my parents were always very supportive of him, even when they first met him. They never did that. They never said, "Oh, I don't know about this guy." But anyway, so he's done that and done really well with it.
Yeah, he's actually been around the world several times now, right?
Yep.
What's the band that he plays with now?
Boyce Avenue.
Right. And
yes.
the people who listen to this, they'll know that band. Pretty famous group, and And he's a real entrepreneur. He decided to do something on his own in life, and
Yes.
the band doesn't own him. He's a hired hand because that's what he does. He is an independent.
Yes, and I'm very proud. I mean, the day that I found out that I was pregnant with our oldest daughter, who's 7, Ada, I had decorated the house and I put up a sign that said, you're a dad. And he came home, and from his job, he was a producer at an interactive design agency. Mm-hmm. And he came home and told me he quit his job. So, that was...
by the way.
By the way. So he decided, that wasn't for him. He didn't want to be strapped to anything. And then I think I was probably about 5 months pregnant with Ada when the opportunity came for him to meet with the guys from Boyce Avenue. And I remember I was like, do you think it's going to be okay that I'm going to have a baby? And obviously it's okay because we're in 7 years now.
That's right. Yeah. It's a different life.
Yes.
But, it's a normal life for other people. Even if it wasn't music, there's a lot of people who do a lot of traveling.
Oh, totally.
For their jobs. Not easy
No.
on a family, but it's one of those things that people still do. So tell me about your girls.
Ada is 7. She's in first grade, and she is actually the one that is the surfer.
Yeah.
That's what she's
already surfing.
She started last summer. She hasn't been out since last summer, but in her mind, I mean, she's a surfer, and I don't doubt her. I think that she's going to just crush it this summer. I think she's funny, she's very smart, and she's just a great kid. And Alice, she is 3, and she is also very smart and very funny, and she is very, very strong-willed.
Yeah?
Yes, she is.
Everybody's got to have one. Everybody's got to have one.
Yes. She's amazing, but yes, she's very, very strong-willed.
Challenges you.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, it's a good thing that you were a volunteer for a long time because that just sets you up because you understood strong-will.
Totally. Very, very much like middle school.
I always ask middle school workers, and you know this, before they become middle school workers, do you like middle schoolers? I already knew you did, I guess. I'd seen you around hanging out with them. Something. Maybe I'd ask you. I don't remember. It's been a while. But what I tried to do with everyone before they went to middle school, I'd say, do you like middle schoolers? And the answer is either...
Right, yes or no.
Yes or no.
Or we'll talk later.
Or I've never, or I've never done it before. Oh, well, you'll find out real quick. Yes or no. And if they say no, we say, well, this isn't the place for you. Let's find another place.
Right.
So you've got a strong-willed child, and I don't know what that's like. I only have 3 strong-willed children.
I know
so
them.
yes, you do. Yes, you do. Which is great for their independence, great for their future. And
that's what everyone keeps saying.
Yeah.
It'll be great in the
Very
long
tough
run.
on the parents.
Right.
Very tough on the parents. Very tough on the parents. In fact, I was in Jamaica speaking for a mission group. I was with Maury Buchanan, and I said, it's a storm a minute in our house because we have 5 leadership people, my wife, myself, and their 3 kids. And I said, I used to think that was terrible. Then I realized it was terrible, and then I realized that it was actually a great thing. It was just hard.
Right.
My children are doing great now. And he came up to me afterwards. He said, thank you so much for saying that because I always wondered why our kids and us always fought. I said, tell me what they do, Maury. They have these high-powered jobs, both of them. His wife is like #1 realtor in Nashville. I'm going, Maury.
Yeah.
Hello.
So we've got that going for us.
You got that going for you. That's right. But you and Jason both are kind of fire inside, but on the outside, you kind of stay calm for the most part.
I think that's true. There is a very big fire in both. I mean, we're very, very passionate about certain things. But yes, I do think that those that don't know us think we're very even-keeled.
Yeah.
But
that's
it's
good.
Not true.
That's good. You don't explode everywhere you go, right? We found that to be true.
Yeah.
People like you better if you don't. So anyway, let's go back and let's talk about student ministry and your volunteer. Do you remember how you started volunteering? I don't remember the moment.
Oh, it's like many moments that your people get started.
Okay. All right. Tell me about that.
I was in college and I had started doing some stuff with FCA with Fellowship of Christian Athletes. So I kind of was doing stuff with some students there. And you knew that. And then, I got a phone call at, 2 days before a sled trip. Like, hey, Serena, it's Doug. You want to go sledding? And
that sounds like me.
Yeah. So that's pretty much how, and I remember, you were like, you told me, you said, I'm going to give you one of our best students. And I think I got one of the best and one of the worst, because you always have to kind of average them out. But I stuck through it for a while after that. Yeah.
And Youth Worker Nation, here's the deal. I observe people for a long time before I just go, hey, let's go.
Hey, I said I was doing other stuff. I was doing other stuff.
That's right. So I knew that you would be good for it. And so, yeah. So tell me about that first trip. What was it like overall?
It was definitely, it was pretty life-changing in that this was something I knew that I enjoyed working with high schoolers from FCA, but it was kind of strange because I was only 19 to work with high schoolers. It's just, there's that weird age, thing. So I liked middle school. I liked the challenge of it. I liked that they were just, so hard to deal with. But also they were still just extremely loving and accepting of me. So...
That's what I love about middle schoolers. And I was not trained to be a middle school worker. I was trained for high school. And so I had to learn on the job how to work with middle school and read some books and go to some seminars, right? Come to find out, if you like middle schoolers, to me, it was the best place to be. And what I found with most of my middle school staffers over the decades was, if they were a middle school staff, it was a real calling, and they didn't want to be anywhere else. They didn't want to go up. They didn't want to go to any of the other groups. They didn't want to go down to elementary. They wanted to work with those middle schoolers, which is a real specialized area.
Yeah.
And that's real. The great thing about you is that you give real honest answers, because that's the way you're built. And that's what we want here, because this is not about you and me as much as it is about those people that will be watching at different times, those volunteers and people who are thinking about getting into volunteering like you did. And they need to know the good, the bad, and the ugly. So tell me about, tell me about your worst volunteer moment.
There are several that were pretty rough, but there was one time, and it was with middle school, and I had been doing it about 5 years or so. And I had this one group of sixth graders. They had never come to club before, and they were just terrible. They were the worst. They were just brats. They weren't listening to anything. They weren't participating. I think that they were playing catch with some chapstick or something. And I tried to even incorporate that into what we were doing, and nothing was working. It was just awful. And I was really frustrated with just how they were acting, to the point that after club was over, I felt so awful how I handled the situation that I went up to the parent. And I said, hey, I just want to let you know that if they come home and they say anything bad about me, please call me. Let's talk about it, because I was really frustrated with them. And
which is not a bad thing to do. That's a very good thing to do. How did it turn out, though?
It turned out that this is so emotional for me. But one of the best things about doing all of this was one of those terrible, awful girls. And I had lunch together, I don't know, a couple months ago, like around Christmas time. And so she's going to kill me if I get her age wrong. I think she's 22. She might be 23.
She probably will never watch this.
She probably will never see this. But we were having lunch together, and she asked me, she was like, all those years when you would talk to us, like, did you really believe in us? Like, when you told us and you were trying to set us on the straight and narrow, to make the right decisions and to do the right thing in relationships and with school and, their friends. Like, did you really believe in us? Did you believe that we were going to be okay? And I was like, of course I did. Why in the world, why wouldn't I believe that? It's like, well, we were so bad. And, sometimes we didn't do what you told us to do. I was like, yeah,
sometimes.
But I mean, but it's cool because this group of girls, like I said, they were awful.
Mm-hmm.
And
they knew they were.
Yeah, and they did it on purpose, I think, half the time. But these are also the same girls that in high school would call me at midnight to talk to me about whatever it was that they were doing or weren't doing, or they just had to talk to somebody. And then years later, I'm still hanging out with them. It's it's pretty. So that's one thing, like, that's why I chose to use that as a bad point.
Yeah. Because
sometimes your terrible experiences, they kind of push you to do something better. Or, 10 years later, you see, okay, well, I guess I did the right thing. I guess they needed some scolding. That's what they were looking for.
And to some degree, that's true.
So I don't know.
Students love boundaries. They act like they don't, but they need boundaries, and they love boundaries because it gives them security. And middle school is a very difficult time.
Yeah.
Hardest time in all of our lives, but the most creative time. In fact, I don't know if I did it when you were there, but I would tell students in my last 5, 6, 7 years, whatever you're thinking right now, whatever it is that you wish you could do in life is probably what you need to do. Mm-hmm. And it's what we kind of squish out of our kids, at some point. Oh, well, that was just a pipe dream. That was XYZ. Yet the most creative time in our life is middle school.
Yeah.
Jason is a good example of that too.
Oh, he's a perfect example of that.
Yeah. He had the dream and he pursued the dream. My son as well pursued the dream and still pursuing. And it was those formative years, and you're a major part of that. I know those girls. You don't even have to tell me their names. Yes, you just had to tell me the story, and I know.
Right.
And yes, they needed you very much, and they were a great learning field for you with all that. And we used to talk about that. Basically, I tried to tell every staffer, and probably most of the time.
Not me.
No. You know what it is? We had those retreats and everything, and all any of us really wanted to do was go outside and surf and jump in the ocean. But anyway, so nobody's really listened to anything I was teaching them when I was training. I was thinking too, if I can just get through this, I can get in the ocean myself. I was thinking, So, because I'm a youth pastor, ADD, and all that good stuff, I would tell my youth workers, the people that you work with, the students that you work with now, may be the people that are going to sign your checks, may be the people that are going to be your doctors, may be the people that are going to handle a whole lot of things in life for you. Mm-hmm. And I said, and this student became my pastor because I go to his church now. And he says, well, I've never heard of that before. But the one thing I didn't say was they may be the ones to marry your sons and daughters, which did not happen with me, but it could, could happen with someone in the future here. Mm-hmm. All that. So those sort of things. And here you are, years later, and these ladies are still calling you, and this is a theme that we've found with volunteering and with people that are working with students, that there are those certain students that will stay in our life. Mm-hmm. And I believe those girls probably will keep staying in your life.
Well, I've tried to
tried to get rid of them.
Just kidding.
Yeah. So anyway, tell me about your best moment as a volunteer. I mean, that was kind of a worst best.
That was a worst best.
See if there's another best. I'll tell you what, I'm going to throw you under the bus.
Yes, totally.
And then you're going to go to the next part. I know you're dying to talk about what happened in Washington, D.C. You've got to tell that because
I haven't been back.
That's right. It was a very bad experience for you, and I love D.C. I love that trip, so it was heartbreaking for me. But I absolutely understood. So tell, and this is one of my leadership faults. It's one thing that I never like to happen Never happened before. It never has happened since. Although Jim Bazinski and I talked about one really bad incident that happened in D.C. We
Yes,
recovered from all of them. Yes.
Heard that one too.
So, yes. So, but out of all the trips, and there were lots of trips, very few incidents. Seriously, because we were so strict. I was stricter than most youth pastors ever were about staff and stuff. So tell us about that though, because you fell through the cracks.
Yes. It was the year 2000.
Oh no.
And I was 20, and at 20 I was one of the senior staff, which is kind of funny thinking of it that way, but I was.
Yeah.
And I had,
That's how good you were and still are.
well, I mean, I had a lot of responsibility. I helped with a lot of this trip, the organizing, the picking what students are going to be with, what staffer, and there was I was in charge of
Too much.
a great portion of this.
Yeah.
That said, even though I was a senior staffer, there were a lot of staffers that were older than me, and some that were even less experienced than I.
Yes.
And then there were about, I don't know, maybe 5 under me that were younger than me. Anyway, so the whole trip, it was just kind of, whenever there was staff meetings, it was just, I was kind of brushed under the rug. No one was telling me when things were happening, but I knew when they were happening because I organized it. And,
Right.
so,
And by the way, that was another thing that's haunted me, just the very things you're talking about. Go ahead.
no, so it was just kind of, I was treated as if,
Youth workers, you
Sorry,
will do
guys.
stupid things. I did stupid things. And to this girl, that was the worst.
and I love all of these people.
I know you do.
But it was just, I was treated kind of like crap, just pretty much taken advantage of.
Yes.
Because it was, I think, mostly because of my age, just because it was like, oh, well, I'll just give that to Serena. Anyway, so giving that to Serena, it wasn't just, oh, we'll have her read an extra Bible verse or something. It then ended up being, I'm going to give my kids to Serena, and I'm going to give my kids to Serena, and I'm going to give my kids. And honestly,
And by the way, I didn't know this was happening. And that's terrible. I'm in charge, and I didn't know this was happening, and that is unacceptable.
honestly,
Absolutely unacceptable. Go ahead.
I really should have said something, but I felt like there was nothing for me to say because during the first half of the trip, nobody listened to anything I had to say anyway. So I ended up with a couple other staffers who we were all young ladies at the time. I don't know if any of us had ever been to DC before. And we ended up, I think there were, 5 of us, and we had over 20 students under our supervision going to the mall.
With another 20,000
Oh,
students.
yes.
But this is a major convention every 3 years. DC is very, I don't know if ominous is the word, but it's very big. It's very technical. You really got to know your way around. And the other thing about it is now add 20,000 students and a convention on top of it.
And public transportation.
Public transportation.
And we didn't have phones.
We didn't have
Isn't that
cell phones.
crazy?
Right.
No, we had walkie-talkies that didn't work.
That's right, walkie-talkies that didn't go
Yes.
far enough.
Right.
Yeah.
I think maybe I don't know, maybe one of us had a cell phone, but you couldn't use it because it was
Expensive.
It didn't work, yeah.
Or something, right. Yeah.
So anyway, we didn't lose any children, and I think we all.
But they had dumped them on you, and you had to take a subway
Yep.
all the way to, what was the name of that place? You go through Foggy Bottom. I know that. We always remember Foggy Bottom. Every time you took a subway, you went, Foggy Bottom. You got to go through there. But it was somewhere out there away from one of the suburbs.
It was just scary. It was really scary.
Yeah.
And I mean, to somebody, maybe that doesn't sound like that big of a deal to have 5 young girls in charge of 20 students, but these were both middle and high schoolers, so it wasn't just...
Which there was not supposed to be. They were not supposed to be. They're supposed to be totally divided.
Right. It just...
And some staffers saw the avenue, and they knew better too.
Yes.
They knew better. Because guaranteed, I didn't know about it because they knew what I would say.
It was just an experience that... Basically, when I came home from that trip, my mom said, I told her everything that happened. And she was like, so I just want you to know, when it comes back around, you're not going. Because you're, from what you said, you never want to go back. So I'm going to remind you when you come home and say, guess what? I'm going to D.C. You're not. and you're not going to go. There were
only two more, and that ended. 1985 it started. 2006 was the last one, and you were,
I did two. Yes.
There were two. You did 2000, so there were two more left. 03 and
yes.
06. But yeah, I am.
I didn't
and
do
once
the
again,
next one.
haunts me because I know what a great trip it is. And when you do something like that to a volunteer, if you did something like that to a paid staff, they might resign.
What's funny, too, is a lot of it I just don't remember because I just remember I was so scared that counting, and you're constantly counting and all these kids.
I think it was years before you ever let me know, even. In fact, I don't think nobody else is going to let me know. And so that was very dangerous. And because I like small numbers in large cities per staff.
Yes.
20 put you guys, you had 5 staffers, so that puts you at 4 per staff. But when you got middle school, high school.
Right. It doesn't sound like, they can handle 4. But it was
No. And you guys that are doing 7 per staff people, in major situations like that, you're looking for an accident. It's going to happen. I mean, this almost happened. That's how good the staff people, the volunteers I would get were when they did their job and didn't dump their students on somebody else, right?
No, afterwards,
that's how good. Did they apologize to you? I hope so.
I'm sure at some point, but everybody was just, I had such a great day. And the girls and I are looking at each other. Well, yeah, you had a great day because we had your kids. Yeah. I mean, I would have loved to just walk around with my friends.
Oh, that's terrible. Yeah, that's
I'm sorry.
Terrible thing.
I love
But
you
I
guys.
wanted you to bring that out because those things can happen. And if it were lesser people, your volunteer days were over. If it was a lesser person, and still you kept volunteering. Do you remember the last year you volunteered for me?
I think it was 7 years later. I think 2007.
That's a long time after such a bad situation, and that was a very bad situation. That's why if you didn't bring it up, I was going to bring it up. Because people need to hear that. This is about training other people.
Right.
And about helping them, do what's right. And once again, I love Serena, and so does my wife. We just think she's the best. Mm-hmm. And for something like that to happen to her, it was just devastating when I finally found out what had happened to you. But we had some great moments together. So I'm going to give you some word association. We've talked about that. Never done this with anybody else on this show.
All right. I like trying new things.
That's right. Let me see if okay, first of all, let me say Universal Studios.
Rock the universe. And that was always fun.
Yeah?
Yeah. I don't think I had any bad times that...
You kept going back.
I kept going back.
Right?
Yes.
Well, remember a good time at Rock the Universe?
I think
Universal Studios.
Yeah, what was fun for me then was that I was, senior staff, so I didn't have a group, so I was able to go.
Yeah.
Yes, but that also is kind of bottom of the barrel at the same time because I was ping-ponging between the different groups and helping with the kids that needed help, the ones that didn't want to go on the ride.
Tell me how we did that, though. You didn't have your own specific group this time.
Right.
I mean, tell me the good of that.
I mean, the good is that you have the flexibility to help where you are needed, that you're able to, and as in that position, we also crafted what the groups were going to be. And so that really helped a lot. So you knew, okay, well, pretty sure that she might need me at some point in the day. So then you go and help out with that group that might, after a couple hours, that kid needs to eat something, they're going to be crazy. So I should probably go check to make sure the crazy is toned down, that kind of thing. And I think that it was good to have that extra person.
Yeah, and we hadn't done that very, very often. In fact, those are some of the first years that we did that, because we ended up building enough staff, and that's key, build enough good staff. Building a lot of numbers doesn't help if they're not good, and we had some pretty good staff.
Well, and there's always like, a staff member could get a headache because they went on a spinny ride, or,
That's
so
right,
it was
that's
always
right.
nice to be able to fit in where you were needed the
But
most.
sometimes it was tiring.
Yeah, but
Yeah. The perks and the leadership is tough. You get perks with it, but it also means that you're in charge.
Right.
And in charge can sometimes bring tough times. Okay, Gatlinburg.
well, there was a time a girl almost knocked me out with a snowball.
Yeah?
I loved Gatlinburg. I've always pushed to make you guys go on the waterfall hikes,
Yeah.
even when nobody else wanted to, but they always liked it in the end.
Yes.
Gatlinburg was a fun trip.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was gross. It was gross.
Wait a minute. Now let's explain to people, what do you mean by it was gross?
Well, I mean, we sleep on a bus. You drive on the bus, 14 forever hours, and there's always a kid that throws up every single time. And
Yes.
you're laying there. Please don't let it be my kid. Please don't let it be my kid. And then Serena. And so then, if it's your kid, you have to go and escort them to the gas station bathroom.
Gas station bathroom, that's
Yeah.
right. They're usually these big truck stops because that was the most convenient.
Yep.
But we tried to do cleaner places. None of us like those dirty truck stops.
Yeah, I believe it got better after I stopped doing it, but
Oh, did it? I'll have to go back and ask my therapist. But anyway, polar bear.
polar bear is awesome. That is always, and I think I did it every single year. I mean, we find the coldest stream, the one that has preferably snow and ice
In winter.
in winter, and you just get in the water, and Doug would lead the way and tell us how far we had to walk to become an official polar bear member.
Yes.
It's so silly.
It was,
But they thought it was really cool.
But it worked, and it was cool.
Yeah.
Blue feet by the time we got out.
Yes.
I remember a couple of kids laying down in the water because
yeah.
they were.
Yeah, some decided to go underwater at some points, but it was good.
Yeah, yeah. I remember your devotion when we went down the bottom side of the waterfall on the boulders. Do you remember doing a devotion down there with the roaring water?
Yes.
And you'll always do great devotional talks. Tell us about that.
Yes, and my favorite place was always by the waterfalls. And it doesn't get much more awesome than, water falling. But I mean,
Yeah.
that was great. And I will say one thing that you always told me, because I don't even have to think about what devotional I gave, because you always told me that most people, they've got one story.
The
Great
best
speakers.
communicators, right.
See?
Yeah.
The best communicators have one story. And so that was the story that I gave. And it was, I'm pretty sure that it was Brooks that I heard this from.
Wow.
And back when we were in high school, Brooks Braswell, who has been on the show,
Yeah.
Brooks was an FCA leader here at Eustis High School, where I was. And I remember he gave a talk, and I don't even think it was a big point that he made, but he talked about how, as Christians, sometimes you're the only Bible that other people ever read or ever see. And so, I don't know, it may have just been like
A fleeting.
or maybe I stole his whole thing. I don't know. I think he's got a couple more.
I think so.
Anyway, so
Well, you're the better communicator. You only have one speech. Okay.
right, I've only got one. My whole thing that I would talk to the kids about was that as Christians, sometimes you are the only Bible that anyone ever reads or sees. And so, I mean, you have to look at yourself, like, are you a good example of that? I feel like it's better to present yourself in a way so that somebody, it doesn't really question where you stand. It's more they just know it by how, and I'm not talking about just you're spitting out verses left and right. I mean, you are just trying to walk the best example, being kind to other people, loving everyone unconditionally, and just by that way being a strong Bible for other people. So then by seeing that behavior, they will ask you, why are you like that?
Yes.
That kind of thing. Like, because you don't want to be the pristine Bible that just sits on the shelf. You want to be the one that has the pages are curled and they're highlighted. And you just want to be the best example that you can be, because some people may, you're it. Nobody else.
And you are, and you were.
Sees it.
You're that person. That's what people want to communicate with you, because people who live the life, they are people that draw people to them because they love people. And they listen to people. You don't always give the answers. We're not supposed to always give the answers. And usually we're not supposed to give the answers unless they're asking the questions.
Right.
I like to talk about the guy who I thought he wanted to ask Jesus to his heart. And he says, no, I just came up here because my dog died. I want somebody to pray for me. Oh, okay.
Right.
I thought, well, that's a wake-up call. So, yeah, that was absolutely, I always loved it every time you did that, because you do some variation of that, and I like that. Okay, the next word, though, discipleship.
Being in discipleship or leading it?
It's your word.
Well, I'll talk about my experience in discipleship.
Okay.
When I was in high school, and I had your wife, Colleen, and then Karen were discipleship. And I didn't start until my senior year. I went on a ski trip with you guys as a student, and that was also a traumatic experience for me.
Oh, yes.
So I went on that ski trip, and I just was like, these ladies are pretty great. I think I'd like to be around them more. And so I just, middle of the year, just jumped right in.
Yeah.
And some of my other friends were in it. And, I mean, they were just the most loving and wonderful and just caring women to have as role models. I mean, my mom is wonderful, but there are some things that you don't want to talk to your mom about.
Right.
And so to have these amazing godly women that you could talk to, confide in, it was wonderful. It was a great, great experience. And
you passed that on. You became the disciple.
I did. I don't think I did a great job as...
You still have these girls talking to you. Don't tell me you didn't do a great job. You did do a great. Yeah, you do.
But yes, so I ended up doing it for a little while in middle school, and they were just the best. I can't.
Well, Karen and Colleen are very good, and they were great trainers too. And the one thing that they did for you and some of the other girls were that y'all became what they were to you. You became to other people, and that's
we tried.
That's
we
what
tried.
Right. You did, and that's what disciple is. You teach someone to do what you do. Give them the knowledge that you have. Now go give that to somebody else. Tell them volunteers. These volunteers that are through the decades beyond us now, and. Or now, what's that one thing that you wish somebody had told you about being a volunteer before you started?
I wish someone would have told me that not all the kids are going to like you. I think that's a big one, because you go in and you're like, I'm going to change some lives. I'm going to be amazing. They're going to love me.
Yeah.
They don't always love you.
No.
Sometimes, they just flat out don't like you. But that's okay, because they're going to like somebody else.
Yes.
And so just being able to let it go and realizing, okay, well, we are not a clique, but I think that those two, they're the ones that are going to, they're the ones that are going to work.
That's why multiple staff. There are people that try to do this job on their own, or they try to do it with maybe one other volunteer. The more volunteers that you have that are good volunteers, they're designed for it. You're giving them some training, and a lot of it is on the job training. I could teach you all day long, but until you're on the job, you don't really get it. and you
Right.
know that. You've got to have multiple staff because you need multiple personalities,
Yes.
not in one person.
Right.
For the therapist, you know, help the therapist, but you don't want multiple personalities. One person trying to deal with all these different personalities.
Right.
There's got to be different people because you have all kinds of people coming in,
Yes, exactly.
and you'll have more people coming in because all of them have connected with someone, and they will go, you got to come here, meet my staffer, this person. What's one thing you wish somebody had told you before you had your babies?
That's a lot like middle school.
So, we prepared you well.
I don't know. I feel like everybody always says, how the days are long, but the years are short. I mean, but that's so true because, good grief, some days are just super long.
Are they going to end today?
Right.
One thing that I told you guys is when you want to be there the least, when it's the hardest to get there.
That's when you need to be there the most.
And by the way, there's times that in my own life, since then, there's times I said, I know I need to be there. I just can't do it.
Yes.
That's seldom because I know to go through it. So I know for you guys, there are times that you go, I just can't this time. Right?
Yes.
So tell them about that. Were there some times that were that bad? You just nothing inside you wanted to go there, but when you got there, do you remember a moment when it was that good?
I remember, not an exact moment, I remember like really, really happening at least twice where, and I'm not talking about the time like, I just don't feel like going. I mean, the time when I was like, I am done. I am not doing this ever again.
Yeah.
And I can't tell you exactly what pushed me to that edge, but I remember the first time that it happened, what kept me going was two of my original girls that I ever had. And just thinking about, okay, well, they really were, these were angel girls. I mean, they were amazing. But I just kept thinking about them like, okay, well, I know that there's going to be another round of them. There's going to be another round of them. Like, just keep going, keep going. And then later on, the same thing kind of happened with my awful children. But I kept thinking like, and this was after when, they were in high school and calling me at night like, okay, well, I'm going to be that person. There's going to be somebody. But then again, I do think that it's true. The times that you want to be there the least is when you need to be there the most. But when you have more times of feeling that way, and that's why I stopped. Like, I think it just came to the point where it was like, maybe it's just time to pass it on to somebody because my times of not wanting to be there are just adding,
Yes.
And it was just my time to be a wife and later on a mom.
There is a time when volunteers need to say enough.
Yeah.
It is not forever, and family does come first.
I think my balance was just off. I mean, I was working full time. I had a husband, and I took on, and it's my fault too. Like, I just took on the bulk of it. I mean, I was planning every meeting, and it was another job.
Yes, it was.
But I wasn't getting paid for it.
You weren't getting paid. That's all right.
So, it started just to take its toll. And the fact that my balance was just so off that I realized, well, I can't quit my real job. And I'm not going to quit my husband. Right. So I needed to step back. And I remember having the talk with you about, we just had lunch. We were standing outside of the restaurant, and I working up the nerve, like, I'm going to do it. And so finally I just had to say, I think I need some time off, but I was like, I'll get you through the next sled trip. And I think I stayed on for probably about 5 more months because it was just,
because you're a softie.
there was a lot of stuff to do, and I just wanted to make sure that when I left, which, I was thinking very highly of myself, which is kind of a joke, but I just wanted to make sure that the girls that were taking over, that they were able to do it, that they were comfortable with what they were doing, and that it wasn't going to be too much for them, that they were able to have the balance that I didn't have.
And with you saying that, Youth Worker Nation knows why I'm so indebted to you as a volunteer, as a person, because that's a person. That's who you are. That's not just a volunteer. And that's the type of people, you are the type of people I was looking for.
Oh, thanks.
That were so dedicated because, student ministry is painful anyway.
Mm-hmm.
It is so good, but it is so hard. Is that about right?
Yes.
That for you to volunteer, the average volunteer lasts a year. A year.
Yes. I was reminded of that a lot too.
Yeah. Yeah. And so the endurance was incredible. I hated losing you. But the other side to that was this. What I found with our volunteers was that when it was time for them to go, and they knew it, it wasn't going to do me any good to try to hold on to them.
Right.
Because their time was up.
Mm-hmm.
What's a better thing that we could have done and that other youth workers could do to keep their volunteers? And once again, we may not have been the best student ministry, but we held on to incredible volunteers for long periods of time.
Mm-hmm.
So tell us what we could have done differently so that you never got to that point of just frustration and being overwhelmed, too much, getting too much. What are some of the things that could have happened?
Well, I mean, it could have very well just been mostly a personal problem.
Yeah.
But I mean, just the delegating.
I mean, there's all kinds of people have gone through and with different personalities.
Yes, it was. I think just spreading everything out more, where it was. I think a lot of times it was just laid on to me. Just okay. Well, here's, a Tuesday. What are we gonna do? And then to have to, take into account when I don't have really training for this, I'm not paid for this. I'm just kind of winging it.
Yeah.
And I'm taking experiences that I had in high school and college and trying to just kind of throw it in there somewhere. Mm-hmm. And I mean, we really, when I was there, we had an excellent group. I feel like I'm like, it was just all me. But I mean, we had a really,
you
really
brought
good group.
some real organization to this. And for those who don't know, and there are many more youth pastors like me than are not. There are very few youth workers that are full-time that are like you and extremely organized. Those who are totally invaluable, and unfortunately, none of us get paid what we're worth. My weakest area was always organization. My strong areas were public relations. Mm-hmm. And so I had to keep working on my strengths. Unfortunately, that meant if I did not get enough volunteers, youth workers, if you don't get enough volunteers, whether you're in public school or community or church, then you're going to burn out the volunteers you got. I burned you out.
Yeah.
And I mean, I know it. I didn't know how to reverse it. I didn't know how to stop it, even when I saw it happening, because once again, we didn't have enough personnel yet. Mm-hmm. And what I knew about my volunteers was that every one of you should have been paid. And I actually tried to get to where I could hire some of you. Well, and I couldn't do it. And I couldn't get the boards to go there. And they needed to go there. We had produced what should not have been produced without multiple paid youth staff.
And I don't think, that sounds like you don't do it expecting to get paid. Obviously, it's not a paid position.
But
and
there's
the only reason I'm saying
a
that is because then if that would have happened, then maybe time taken off of work would have been, then that would have
compensated.
Yes, exactly. But the team that we had, they were wonderful, and I think that to make it better would just be to spread. And I think we did the best that we knew how to do.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
We pretty much knew everyone's strengths and weaknesses.
That's right. Unfortunately, you had more strengths than most of us. And that really was true. Are you left, right brain?
I have, when you take that test and it's the different animals?
Yeah.
I was all of them. It was just, and I remember.
That is your balance. I mean, that is so unusual. Probably left, right brain, but you're a very even person for you to have all of those. And some people have it. Very few. You're rare.
Yeah, it was.
And I knew you were a rare and wonderful person. Yeah.
That was Bob Porter gave me that test. And
it wasn't the disc one, it was the animal one.
It was the animal one, because I've done the disc too, but this was in our college class. Mm-hmm. And I remember just being so frustrated filling out this form, and I didn't understand. And I remember seeing him just looking at me, because he knew. Mm-hmm. He knew what was going to happen, that I was.
Because that's what he did for a living. Yeah. Part of his living was analyzing people and helping to find.
Me without...
I know. Don't let me be frustrated and take my test. Right. That's good. And I want people to hear that. I'm not trying to get attaboys in here. It's great when I get some, and just you being here is an attaboy to me. Just a pat on the back, because I just don't get to spend time with you. So thank you for being here.
Oh, you're welcome.
But the other thing is, we can abuse our volunteer staff, even when we know not to, even when we try not to. And so there needs to be a way to just not, it's got to be a fail-safe system. Mm-hmm. Really needs to be a fail-safe system. If I did anything, I should have said, okay, Serena, see you in 2 months. Before all this happened.
Right.
No, don't worry about it. 2 months, take a break. And we did that with some people. And I don't know if we did it with you, but some of them stayed 20 years and had to make them take breaks. That was personality type, though. Mm-hmm. But you're that valuable, and that's hard. So Youth Worker Nation, take notes. I hope they're taking notes on that, because we all abuse people. We do in volunteer ministry. And one thing I say to volunteers is this also: put a guideline for yourself. Make sure that you are not taking time from your family when you're married,
right?
Got kids. You only have so many volunteer hours in you. That was my statement. So make sure that if you only have so many, I will push you beyond what hours you have, but I give you permission to say no. Mm-hmm. Because it's just me. I'm going to keep asking. That's the nature of the beast and what it was. And one reason, I had to take breaks too.
Right.
I took 3-month breaks every 5 years. Thank God the church did that. And I wrote a book called Rest Up, because I know what it's like to take 3 months off. And most people don't. Mm-hmm. And it was transforming. Volunteers need 3 months off.
I mean, we got a little summer break, but, well, sort of.
Yeah, you did. Well, we tried to, in fact, we were unusual student ministry. We really didn't do a whole lot in the summer. Occasionally we'd do the DC trip, or we'd do a mission trip, but didn't have many weekly meetings. It's hard to get kids together, hard to get staff together. And you guys worked so hard from the time the week before school started till the week after school ended. I wouldn't have had you the next year had we kept pushing all the way through the summer. And I think that's why.
Yeah, why we took it off.
And I think that's why some volunteers only last a year. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
No, that makes sense.
When I think of you, when Colleen, my wife, thinks of you, we think of joy. We think of, we just want you to be this one. You're that person that means a lot to us personally. Never get enough time with you. You're the type of person also, though, like my wife, that doesn't need to have a lot of time with a lot of people. You need that separation time. Mm-hmm. You're fine by yourself, and that's why people want to be with you, by the way.
Oh, well.
That's why they want to be with Colleen, because you are at peace most of the time with yourself, because you have that balanced personality. Children break the balance.
Yeah. But they're wonderful.
Yeah, but they're wonderful. Any other thoughts? Anything else you'd like to just say to people? You'd like to reach out and say to any of those students that or volunteers that you worked with?
Oh, I don't know. It's funny because I think everyone remembers. They all remember you. I mean, you walk around and you mention, and Doug, I mean, that's not even it's kind of a commonish name, but I mean, you don't have to see your last name. Everybody knows. But it's funny because the students really don't remember us as much. And so I see my kids everywhere, all over. In fact, I think one of my kids, I think I had her.
And when we say kids, my wife used to correct this.
Sorry.
She said when I was dating her that her parents said, "Wow, how many children does he have? How many times has he been married?"
Right. That's my husband's like, "Who are you talking?" I'm like, "One of my kids." He's like, "Oh, it's not really."
But you in youth worker world, you understand
former
kids.
Students,
no, they're all saying kid. They're kids too. So
one of my former students, is actually about to take over my daughter's first grade class, and I think Ada asked her, like, "Oh, do you?" Serena says she knows you. Do you know Serena? And I don't think she did.
Oh, no.
but it's just funny because it's, we see you all over. And I'm sure that there are some that maybe see us. They don't say anything, but
yeah.
It's just, that's kind of funny to walk around and it's cool. I mean, because they're old and
you're going to work with students that are going to end up being professionals in your life.
Mm-hmm.
And
so treat them nicely.
Treat them nicely.
If you don't get along, give them to somebody else.
That's right. Yeah. And listen, there's times that the people that I loved very much, but I didn't treat them nicely. Something happened. We have personalities. I was having a bad day, something. And there's how many times, I never saw that with you. But there's so many times I wish I could have reeled that thing back.
Oh yeah,
but we do that, and everyone that's listening here, they're going to do that too.
Totally.
They're going to say some things they wish they hadn't said. But I don't believe you've said that many things. You were very, very aware of hurting or not hurting someone. Wouldn't you say?
I think so, and I try to censor myself the best I can.
Yeah, we do have to censor ourselves with certain things.
Yes, and what else? And be nice to your fellow youth workers.
Yeah.
Some of my best friends still are those that I was a youth worker with.
They were in the trenches with you.
Yes, and
so to speak.
I mean, but they get it, and it's an awesome relationship, and we have that together. And so, I mean,
isn't it fun to share war stories? I mean, because y'all understand, it's like being like Coach Blake, which we know and people talk about Coach, or any of these people that are way older than you that were in a war, Vietnam, always talk about that because jungle warfare. It was almost like that you remember those stories and you want to share those stories, but they're the only ones who understand the ones you're sharing. And they're the only ones who go, "Oh yeah, I remember. I felt that. Yes,
Yes, we were talking last night, and it's like, I really hope I don't tell him that story. Or
I hope it doesn't come out.
What if I tell this one? And
oh yeah.
So I'm censoring myself. I'm not going to tell you about those behind the scenes moments.
Right. In 50 years, when I'm gone, and you guys, y'all live to be 178. Y'all can get together and tell all the war stories. He's gone. No one will know. They can't shoot him for this now. Yeah. There's all kinds of war stories people have, and about me too. Leadership does that, by the way.
Oh yeah, we're a team about
right. You're a team, but you're a leader. I was a leader, and there's things that you say right as a leader. There's things that you say wrong. There's things that you wish you could take back, and there's things that you wish you could have done, and that you didn't do. So one of those things is I wish I could have preserved you better.
Oh, thanks.
And some of the staff. But hopefully this is going to help some other people. Once again, you're just one of my favorite people.
Oh, thanks. You're one of mine.
Well, I hope so. All of this is helpful for people. You've been there. You've done it over and over and over again. Why did you keep staying?
Just because of the girls. Just because of the good ones and the awful ones. And another part was just because of when I was in high school and the staff that I had. Just because, like I said before, some things you just you don't want to talk to your mom about. I have a brother. I don't have a sister. So I never had and I'm the oldest out of the cousins. So I never had a family member.
You're top of the heap no matter what.
Oh, yeah. But I didn't have that. I didn't have that family member, someone that I could trust aside from my mom. Sorry, Mom. Like right now, my mom's like,
don't throw Mom under the bus.
Like, what is it that you haven't told me? Like, the opportunity to try to be that to someone. And how many girls, hundreds of girls probably that were my kids, my students. Mm-hmm. And, 2 of them, I maybe sometimes have made an impact, like the kind of impact that I feel that my disciple leaders had on me. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Yeah. But it's still pretty big.
You're understating how many people know you, love you. I have more students come to me and go, tell me about, and they'll name your name. Or, and sometimes they'll talk to me about other, different staff people. Hey, how is, Serena, how is Nicole, how is, and so there's more and more and more out there, because when you're the guy in charge, you're not always most favored guy. The people they favored were my leadership volunteers like yourself. They mm-hmm. favored y'all because you were the buffer between me and them. And by the way, my personality is an artist. Leadership was the farthest thing from my mm-hmm. mind and doing that sort of thing. So I would come off rougher sometimes than I was because I'm so soft inside. I'd have to be tough outside. And all I wanted to do is hang out with them and let's all hang out. I just
want to play my trumpet.
That's right. No, not even that. I just want to hang out with you guys and talk and let's go, run up a mountain and mm-hmm. slide down a mountain and go to the waterfall and not worry, Right. But in leadership, you do that, but it wasn't. It was God's design. It wasn't mine. But what I got out of the whole thing was I got you, and I've got many other friends that I would not have had I chosen the art life, mm-hmm. Because I got to deal with people on a much more day-to-day level, which brings more friendship, brings longevity.
Yeah.
Well, Serena, I'm not going to take up any more of your time, although I would like to.
Thanks.
We're going to say goodbye to Youth Worker Nation at this point. And if any volunteers wanted to get in touch with you, and we don't want them knowing your home address or anything, or personal phone number, is there a way in social media that you would feel like that they could reach out to you, or email or something like that?
Sure.
If you don't mind, is there one?
Yes. You can find me on Facebook. I'm Serena Burrows.
So, all right, Youth Worker Nation, it's great having you with us today and with Serena Burrows. You can hear us on iTunes and Google Play and TuneIn, as well as Stitcher, if you are on the Android realm of things. And also, you can get us on YouTube. So, Youth Worker Nation, let us know what you think.
You've been listening to the Youth Worker on Fire podcast. If you like what you hear, please subscribe and tell your friends. Also, leave a comment and tell us what you think. Stay tuned for more informative episodes.